Okay, so then I want to ask Trevor, who may actually have some perspective on that, working on one of the emerging platforms, right? Let's agree, disagree. It's about experience. It's about content. It's about availability. It's about.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree. User experience is really, really important, and what's great about the world we live in today is that you've got app developers in this room, content creators in this room, storytellers in this room, and around the world, competing for those eyeballs, and what I think may happen that maybe hasn't before. And I think when people talk about, this is going to die or this industry is going to replace another industry, really what's being challenged is I hope, quality. It should be about quality of that user experience, quality of that content, and in some cases how that comes together. And so, one of the decisions, I guess, kind of bringing it back to something that we've done in this area is we've created a second screen application for a U.S. broadcaster. We decided to work with U.S. broadcaster instead of others because they weren't focused on ad sales. They weren't focused on advertising.
So U.S. broadcaster not focused on ad revenue?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. I'll let you think about them. And they have subscription revenue models.
A premium network.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason we did that is so that we can focus on user experience before we focused on interactive advertising, and so the engines that we're building as part of that are all gamifying the viewing experience, making sure that the user is tuned not just to the first screen and being distracted by Wikipedia or email, but pulling in the second screen as well.
So. I want to make sure we get to sort of the music sort of publishing side. We were chatting earlier about how some of this, but if the title of this panel is Disruptive Consumption, right? I guess back to the media guys too, and Michael, you can jump in here if you want. At what point does what is sometimes referred to as ancillary content become the primary screen? At what point does, and by the way, the only iPad on the stage belongs to the mobile guy. At what point?
We've got them. Don't worry.
Oh, it's just as TV guys, you weren't going to bring them on stage. I get it.
My son, getting it away from my son is he wants to. If a 4-year-old playing Angry Birds, he's addicted to it. It's ridiculous.
There's a support group for that. Yeah. But at what point do these devices replace the center of the living room device that's become sort of the focus, and to what degree is that even disruptive to a media company? And Michael, I know you've got some real good thoughts, even though you come from music. You've been in the media business for a long time, so I'd like to know what you think.
Well, it's the same opinion I have about all the proliferation of all the new channels and platforms and interfaces. It's fantastic. The issue is getting paid for it, and to whoever created the ancillary item, it may be promotional to the main screen or the main thing that's going on, and therefore it's not a profit center. It's a cost center, and if they want my music, I want to get paid on it. I don't care if it's promotional to you or not. And so I think that anybody who creates content that's going to end up being some of the stuff around the stuff has to fight for the same thing. They have to worry about how you're going to get paid.
Okay, so you guys actually, we were discussing this earlier, getting paid, right? So to you, from the media side, it's somewhat irrelevant who's buying your stuff. But we did touch on this, and this is maybe going to be the funnest part of the panel, that the regulatory environment in Canada is not necessarily specific enough to help you navigate all the waters.
Well, one thing I'd say first in terms of as it relates to disruption and the relationship with an organization like Bell Media or Rogers is that we need to be attuned to what is happening with that disruption and be collaborators with it. So part of what that involves is rethinking what entertainment is and why people sit at a TV and watch a TV or view video on the go or what have you. So we'll be, one way in which we're investing in that is not just the application itself, but the staffing and production teams that are managing our social media accounts, that are conversing with our audience while they're watching. We're now thinking about that as part of the entertainment experience. And what that can do is, live co-tweeting has resurrected the live broadcast, particularly in sports, which is, why we're now actually partners and collaborators in MLSE. The live event of sports is great, and part of what makes it a social event is being a fan and being part of a team, and sitting on a couch with all of your friends and watching, or sitting on a digital couch and tweeting while you're watching a show and reacting. So one could view in that instance social media as a distraction towards another screen, but we're now looking to build applications that grab eyeballs back. And we want Bell Media and Much Music or MTV to harness what is going on, harness the competition to eyeballs. As it relates to music, it's certainly a difficult issue. I mean, Much Music is in the business of music, and certainly one thing that we do is that we program entertainment around music videos. We use music videos as the soundtrack to the brand. And that has been, based on competitive threats of music becoming, many people in this room probably taped music videos on Much Music. That was at a time where to see a video image of a track played, there was scarcity around that moment, so you had to sit and wait. And Much Music, as a broadcaster, has legislated around that idea that we've had a genre protection around music. Today, there's music widely available across the web, either legally or illegally, and it's caused us to rethink how our brand is related to the inspiration itself. It's certainly not an easy issue, but it requires lateral thinking.
And Perry, I mean...
So before we jump into anything regulatory, I really want to disagree with Chris because I don't want to get along with him, but I am agreeing with him. One thing I would add is the disruption from my point of view has been, it's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing. What it's done is the digital platforms have given the audience a voice. Media companies, broadcasters, publishers, we all now need to listen to our audience. And that's really transformed the relationship that was had before, because it used to be very one way. Social media is the epitome of that, where if you don't listen, you're dead. And so we're really focused on understanding, putting our audience, our user, our listener, our reader in the center, and trying to connect with them through various ways. And the user has the power now. The user determines how they're going to engage with you, and that concept of just regurgitation of content from one platform to another, although it may have its uses, it's often not enough.
So, I mean, with the diverse media holdings of both of yours, and I actually do want to come to Trevor on some of this, where you say it's important to be listening, because he's got a lot of those metrics that you should be listening to and working with those sort of things. But in terms of being able to connect, there was something going on, Comcast acquisition of NBCU. There was something called Project Symphony, and the idea was to bring those parts together and to have them sort of, be able to cross-promote across all the different things, be they theme parks or cable networks or broadcast networks. That can't be easy, and it has to be even more difficult, with, for example, a 100-year-old print property, how to make that relevant in sort of, digital formats.
Well, the simple question that makes it really difficult in an organization the size of Bell or Rogers is asking we've got, 25,000 employees, who's your customer? And the answer across our organization is going to be so varied, from a customer who's, I've got your credit card and you're on a 3-year plan and I want you back in 3 years, to you listen to 680 News, to you subscribe to today's parent magazine, to an agency or a client direct, and sometimes combinations of which. It is extremely complicated. So one of the big things on amalgamating companies that have different business plans, different objectives, is to find those areas in common, to say, well, how can we work together to extract the excellence, to make a better connection with my customer and your customer, win-wins. It's extremely challenging, I'm not going to lie to you.
So Trevor, what does the customer want?
What does the customer want? So the customer is sitting in front of a TV a lot. TV is not dead by any stretch. They're sitting in front of the TV a lot. And in fact, according to Nielsen's, 30% of the time we spend on the internet is sitting in front of the TV. So we're obviously we're doing more than one thing at a time. And that's really, really key. And taking advantage of that is something that broadcasters, that producers, that cable companies, that storytellers are all going to try and do and work through. And so disruption is going to take place in a lot of different ways. And we're so early on. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this screen here is probably the most important screen real estate in a generation. Not since Ted Turner created CNN has there probably been more screen real estate, more valuable screen real estate.
I just want to pull the look on people's faces
see it.
regarding that.
Who would disagree with that?
Well, I mean, don't go for the negative. How many people agree with that?
Yeah. The iPad is probably the most important screen real estate in a generation.
Okay,
agree or
so
disagree?
To the small
agree.
segment that can buy one.
Yeah, no. So I'm leading into. I have another question. Where's all the smarts going to be? Is it going to be in the? Where's the computing power going to be? Is it going to be in a smart TV or in your remote control? Any thoughts on that? Have people thought about that?
That's not a yes/no question. They have to raise
It's a yes/no
their hands.
question. Okay,
Right.
remote control is going to have the power. Steve Jobs created the best remote control or the best TV? Best remote control? Yeah, best remote control. Yeah.
From the media giant.
All right. So let's keep talking about Steve Jobs for a second. So he was the largest shareholder in ABC, or Disney, which also owned ABC. Right?
Yes.
American Media owned ABC. And he couldn't figure out television yet, and he didn't get a chance to. So we talked about Ted Turner, we talked about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs left some work undone. Louis C.K. There's a good guy to mention, talking about disruption. Everybody knows Louis C.K.? I never heard of him before a couple weeks ago.
Really?
Everybody heard of Louis C.K.? All right. So who's his broadcaster today?
Louis C.K.
Yeah. Who's running to Louis C.K. to ask to be repped by Louis C.K.? A whole bunch of comedians. I'm guessing any comedians in the room? Any producers that produce comedy?
just on the panel.
So of course we heard about. I'm forgetting his name. Tom, the Yahoo announcement.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, thank you, Tom Hanks. So we're talking about disruption, and I think what I think we sometimes forget is we are so in the early stages. And Steve Jobs didn't quite figure out what this all meant, and he owned a big stake in a broadcaster.
Well,
so we're in the early stages of disruption.
A broadcaster is also a major content provider as well as theme park operator.
Right.
And I think Michael may have one of the keys to this lock having been in music that sort of witnessed enormous disruption very rapidly over the last 15 years.
Well, I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but riffing off what you just said, first of all the innovative ideas in music and all the points to the future come from hip hop, basically. And if you look at the hip hop world, they developed they had no radio, right? And so initially, anyway, in the early years, they had no radio, so they had to develop unique ways of getting to the public. And they developed, they figured out very early on that if this guy had attention, and this guy wanted attention, if this guy aligned with that guy, then he could get attention through him. And so the featuring effect, really. And it's such a well-established part of music now that I just don't understand why a non-hip-hop artists don't do it more. But that's the greatest phenomenon in music right now that's relevant to what you just said, is that the new moguls are the artists, because they have the currency of today, which is attention. And so Justin Bieber's an example of that. He's a product of Usher's mogul empire. Okay. Drake's a product of Lil Wayne's. It's really incredible what's going on. And I think you're going to see that in the other areas too.